This is Dr. Ben Weitz with the Rational Wellness Podcast, bringing you the cutting edge information on health and nutrition from the latest scientific research and by interviewing the top experts in the field. Please subscribe to the Rational Wellness Podcast on iTunes and YouTube, and sign up for my free ebook on my website by going to drweitz.com. Let's get started on your road to better health.
Hey, Rational Wellness Podcasters. Thank you for joining me again today. And we have an interesting guest today. We're going to speak to Dr. Ken Redcross, and we're going to particularly focus on sleep and what you can do to improve your sleep and what are some of the issues that prevent you from getting good sleep. So Dr. Redcross is the founder of Redcross Concierge. He is a primary care doctor who offers a personalized full-service medical practice designed to enhance the patient-doctor relationship. Within his care, he offers a whole range of services, including wellness counseling. He earned his MD degree from Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York, and he specializes in internal medicine. He's had quite a bit of on-air experience appearing on The Doctors and a whole bunch of different TV shows. Dr. Redcross, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Ben. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Okay, good. So how much sleep should everybody be getting?
Oh my gosh, we're going to dive right into it, right, Ben? So the key is, you know, the CDC.
It seems to me that sleep is one of the things that in the functional medicine community, we're all preaching sleep. And then, you know, we're showing up for work after sleeping 5 hours because we're doing 90 things. So
Totally.
all the parts of the wellness lifestyle, it's the one I fall down the worst on.
You know what? I think that's why it's important to talk about that, Ben, because all of us out there, that's why I was kind of teasing to say we're going to dive in because it's that important. You know, the CDC says we're supposed to be getting 7 hours of sleep each and every day, but you and I know, and everyone out there listening and watching understand how elusive that can really be. So one of my big things was, instead of us focusing on the quantity of our sleep, why don't we instead kind of pull back and let's figure out how we can have quality sleep of what we are able to attain so we don't get so stressed out.
Well, why don't you explain to us exactly how you just figure out the quality of sleep and what constitutes sleep, right? There's different cycles of sleep, right? There's different stages and, you know, some of those stages are more important than others, right?
Yeah, you know what? You're right, Ben. You know, one of the interesting things is that you'll talk to someone, a patient, and they'll say, Doc, I can live off of 4 hours of sleep. And then you'll talk to someone else who says they need 11 hours of sleep. Now, I will caution those who feel that they need to wear a badge of honor to say, I need less sleep to be productive, because the studies always show at some point you kind of crash and burn a little, because sleep is a very important process. It is not just a passive process. It's very active when we're getting our sleep. Think about some of the things that happen, Ben. Number one, we're kind of compiling all of our memories from the day. We're restoring our body. We're creating hormones. We're getting strength. So during sleep, it's a very active process, even though it feels very passive when we lay our heads down.
Yeah, great. So how many hours sleep do you get a night, Doc?
Oh my gosh, you threw, this is a tough one. I'll tell you this, Ben. I try to get to 7, but quite honestly, with everyone out there, I usually try at least get 6, okay? Because I travel a fair bit and so forth. But one of the things I try to do is some of the things we'll talk about today, some of the sleep cheats, I at least use them to try to at least improve the quality of my 6 hours.
Right. So can you break down what's the most important part of sleep? Is it the REM? Is it which phase of sleep is really the most important to constitute a quality of sleep?
Yeah, Ben, you hit the nail right on the head. It's about REM sleep. REM sleep are when we're getting our deepest cycle of sleep, and it's also the one where we're having our dreams. And some of the things, like I said, we'll mention today, actually affect REM sleep, and that's what we don't want to have happen. So, like I said, take sleep seriously and look at sleep. I always love to really call it, think about it as a medicine in itself.
When does REM sleep occur?
Oh gosh, it really varies, but a lot of studies will show some hours in there. So maybe 90 minutes to a couple of hours. But once again, everybody's a little different based on some of these other things that we're kind of throwing in all day in our career, or in our life, I should say.
So, what are some of the things that what are some of the things that you really want to focus on in terms of making sure you get a good sleep? Some of the things you want to do at night. You know, a lot of people have talked about avoiding the blue light that comes from looking at computers and phones.
Right.
Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, you know, Ben, so those are some of the things, guys, that are very tough for all of us, right? We're working hard. We all have our careers, whatever that may be. But before bed, we're trying to cram in as much work as possible, answer all those emails. And the studies are showing that that's affecting our sleep each and every night. So you want to try to cut off that light, that blue light you were mentioning. You want to do it 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. Because I know we all have to be productive, but you have to also let your brain get some rest as well, or you will not be as proactive, or I should say productive, as you can be.
What if you use one of those blue light filters? Is that enough?
Yeah, you know, I would definitely say it's better, because I'll have some who, like you mentioned, they just need to work no matter what. And so I think it's better. So, you know, I try to make sure that we kind of negotiate a little bit back and forth, because I don't want this sleep talk to seem stressful, because if so, you'll kind of back up and say, you know, this isn't for me.
Right. So what about if I'm going to turn my phone off and I turn the TV on? Is that just as bad or worse? Or what's the best thing to do before bed to help, before sleep to help us fall asleep?
Yeah, you're kind of exchanging one little problem for another little problem, right? Because
Right.
we also know that when you get to the bedroom, you want to make sure it's time for you to be with your loved one, or either to go to sleep. You want it to be those two functions. You don't want it
Right.
to have your brain kind of revving throughout the day. So most of the research says do your best not to have a television in the room. It makes a huge difference in your quality of sleep each and every night.
Right. And then you get the EMFs as well from having electronic devices on.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I understand even the alarm clock gives off EMFs, and, you know, all those things can affect sleep, and especially in sensitive people. So you got to have the alarm clock a certain distance away from you.
Yeah, and those are things that a lot of people, and it's great that you brought that up, because like you said, in the functional medicine community, you're already on top of that sort of thing.
Right.
But with me being Western trained and kind of learning or seeing the light, you know, this is fascinating stuff for us to talk about. When you mentioned REM sleep earlier, Ben, one of the things that we take in each and every day is caffeine. And we understand the benefits of caffeine as far as the stimulant action, but it also interferes with REM sleep. So that goes back to your question of how much sleep do we kind of need? And it depends. Are you taking coffee at bedtime, or are you taking it earlier in the day? So it varies a little bit, but you're right.
Oh, it's amazing the percentage of people that drink caffeine after like 5 o'clock at night. It's incredible. Something like
Absolutely.
30% of the population. I can't imagine that.
I know. And it's unbelievable, because then, you know, that gets back to when you're talking with your patient, having that good relationship. We talked a little bit about kind of the concierge concept I feel is important, and really knowing your patients. And so those are some of the questions you want to ask, like, you know, what is your dinner routine? You know, when they come in and they want something for insomnia, and you want to say, let's get through some of those sleep habits. And you'd be surprised how much you can kind of tease out.
Right. Now, as a concierge doctor, you can have some time to do that. But the average doctor who's spending 6 minutes with a patient, it's pretty hard to get to that.
Oh, it's tough. And in fact, I'll give it to the medical community. It's actually 7.5 minutes on average. Supposedly. And look, and I understand, I just joke, but I understand, look, not every practice is set up that way, or can be, or every physician, you know, can do that same type of setup. I think we're all very different, and we do the best we can under the certain constraints. But I'll tell you, I do think there is obviously added value when you're able to spend time and kind of get a little bit into the weeds, which is a little bit tougher in my traditional practice days.
Yeah, bottom line is we all know that given an insurance-based system, if you're a doctor and you're accepting insurance, you know, you're going to be under time constraints because of the small amount that the insurance companies want to pay doctors. Everybody's seen their premiums go up and up and up, and a lot of patients are assuming all that money's going to doctors, but I think you and I can both contest that money ain't coming to the doctors.
It's not coming this way, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you. And look, I'll tell you this, Ben, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, or even if you're in the middle of the aisle. The point is, healthcare is something that obviously needs to be remedied. We need to make sure that physicians, providers, that we're all happy. We need to make sure, obviously, patients are happy, which is the reason why that patient-doctor bond is so special to me. Because right now, guys, we're at a crossroads. It's how we can provide that so we can make sure that each one of us are happy.
Right. And we can do prevention because, when we're dealing with all these chronic diseases, if all you're doing is putting Band-Aids and treating symptoms, it's just going to cost the healthcare system more money than anybody can afford.
That's right. And that's exactly what we're seeing now as far as the amount of GDP that we spend on healthcare versus other countries who are a lot more efficient. I know some of the pushback you'll get is it takes 3 months for an MRI, and I get it. But then the studies also show that sometimes that MRI could have waited. We're just in a different society where we kind of, want it now. But look, everything isn't perfect everywhere else, but at least we know that there are some other alternatives out there. We need to do something better because what we're doing now, Ben, isn't working.
Right. Absolutely. So how important is sleep for the immune system?
Sleep for the immune system, I love to say they're intimately involved because you need sleep and the immune system to work properly in order for us to fight infection. And not only that, disease. There's one thing you'll appreciate for a lot of people as we're talking about the functional medicine side, that other hat I'll put on. It's all about inflammation. And so when you're not getting that right amount of sleep and your immune system isn't there, you're not going to be as operable as we should be as these machines that the good Lord set up. So let me tell you this. When you're not getting the right amount of sleep, or if you are, then it's great, your immune system is boosted, but when you're not, you're more susceptible to disease and illness. One of the things that I talked about with you, we were kind of catching up a little bit, is the benefit of medicinal mushrooms. Now, one of the ones that I know most that my patients love is AHCC. Now, AHCC is unique for a couple of reasons. Number one, it works on both the innate and the adaptive immune system. So a quick go through, the innate immune system is when we are exposed to something, those cells are waiting and ready to go. The adaptive are those that our body later has to make to fight because they've kind of gotten through the first line of defense. So AHCC works on that. It also has over 20 human clinical trials, and it's also the #1 immune supplement in Japan used in over 700 clinics. So I mention those things because you want to have data, especially when you're talking about boosting and building up your immune system. I'm already a big proponent of medicinal mushrooms in general, but AHCC was unique because I could look at the studies myself. They even have a website, ahccresearch.org, Ben, where you can go for yourself and intellectualize it and really feel it. So unique stuff.
And I think one of the things people need to understand is when we're talking about strengthening the immune system, we're not necessarily talking about turning the volume up. We're talking about getting a properly regulated immune system because, we have people whose immune system is working, but it's dysregulated. So the body's attacking itself. And that's why we have this huge amount of autoimmune diseases. And that's equally as problematic as people's immune system is weak and get colds and flus frequently.
Absolutely. Well said, Ben. And we've also seen a spike in those autoimmune diseases.
Huge. Yeah.
It is huge. And it's because of all of the things that we're kind of talking about here. And so as we even touched on a couple of these things today that are the kind of sleep cheats, these can make a really big difference in our lives each and every day.
Are there certain foods that encourage sleep?
There are some foods that can be very beneficial. One of them is I am a big proponent of nuts. Nuts are great not only for heart health and brain health, but here we're talking about for sleep, and one of those are walnuts. Walnuts have tryptophan, and tryptophan is the same amino acid that you get in turkey that makes us sleepy during Thanksgiving dinner. So even close to bedtime, a couple of hours, I usually take a handful of walnuts to try to get the benefit. The other thing, I love almonds. Almonds have magnesium. Magnesium is very comforting to our muscles as well, and so I love to kind of bring those in. Now, the newer research shows some information about omega-3s. Now, this study showed that those who were low in omega-3, guess what? They had low melatonin levels. So one of the things I've been talking about is maybe even taking some fish oil at bedtime. There's even a website at nutrientpower.org where you can order an at-home test kit. It's just a little finger prick. You send it back to the and you get a score on the scale. You want to be an 8 or higher, but this is kind of a new
the omega index. Yeah.
Oh, omega-3 index. And that was a big thing. I remember I got my first one, Ben. I was very proud of myself. I was there at 8.8, but I am a CrossFitter, and that was not good enough, Ben. So I really made sure to get a lot of fish in, and it was really good to get another test because I went all the way up to almost 12 to 13.
Yeah,
so
I like to monitor that omega-6/3 ratio, and the goal is to try to get it a 2-to-1 or below if possible.
There you go. And so back to that as well. Once again, more data, more clinical data. And like I said, even with my 6 hours, I feel pretty refreshed each and every day. And I think it's because I kind of pick some of these things that we're talking about today to make a difference.
Now, tryptophan stimulates serotonin, and that's one of the things that stimulates sleep. But carbohydrates also stimulate serotonin production. What do you think about the fact that some people will eat some carbohydrates at night to stimulate serotonin?
Now, that's interesting. And it also depends on the circumstance of the situation. Like I said, I was just joking about the way I'm a CrossFitter, the way I love to exercise. So it depends on my exercise day, because then I'm loading up on carbs and it makes it for a really restful night. And then on other nights, I decide to kind of dial back on my carbs. But for those of you who are not necessarily training that intensely, even still, you want to kind of figure out what works for your body as far as the carbohydrate. Are you gaining weight? Are you kind of gaining a little bit around the midriff, that sort of thing? So everybody's different. But don't always think that carbs are bad things, because they're not, right? It's our first line of, well, one of our first lines as far as energy. So you can play with that at least.
Yeah. Okay. How important is the way your bedroom is set up in terms of dust mites, in terms of dust, in terms of your bedding and your mattress and things like that?
A little more important than you think. As we talk about some of these sleep cheats, none of this matters if you're not comfortable when you finally lay your head down on the pillow or on your mattress. I always get, or sometimes I'll get pushback from patients because I'll say, look, maybe you need to change your bed. And they're like, well, Dr. Redcross, beds are expensive. And you're absolutely right. They are, but it's an investment. A good mattress, 10 to 12 years out of it. And the studies show, once again, it makes a huge difference. There's even some research on memory foam pillows. Some will love it, Ben, and some will say it's too contouring or what have you. But the point is, start thinking of your sleep as something you deserve. Start thinking of your sleep as something that should be restful, so you wake up and get ready to start your day.
As a chiropractor, we get a lot of questions. Hey, doc, what type of mattress? Should I get firm mattress? Should I get a medium mattress? Should I get a memory foam? What have you seen that makes the most sense that's based on data?
That's great, because I would love to hear what you say as well. What I usually tell them is it's very, specific to the person. I'll have someone who loves their firm mattress and their wife will like a mattress that's a little softer, and they battle back and forth. So I think everyone's a little different there. I don't know if the research necessarily says one is better than the other. I usually equate it to the discussion when you have your dentist, and should you have a soft bristles or hard bristles? And you'll talk to certain dentists and they'll all kind of have different views, and it kind of says, well, it depends. So it really does vary. I like a little more firm. I think it's a little more support for the skeletal system personally. I like that. And I think it's a little better for the muscles long term. But once again, someone else will have a little bit of a different view on that.
And then there's the allergy factor too.
Yeah.
And dust mites. So my understanding is if you get a latex mattress, they're very unlikely you're going to have dust mites, because there's really no place for them to yeah, exactly. Whereas a conventional mattress with springs, there's a big space in there where the dust mites can live. And then there's also a whole issue with the springs that can conduct the electromagnetic forces, especially if you have Wi-Fi going in your house.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right, Ben. And I should have mentioned that, because you did ask about the dust mites. Now, you hit the nail right on the head with all of that. Once again, here in New York City, we had a big issue with dust mites. It is a major, major issue. And so it's something to definitely think about when you're investing in a mattress and in pillows.
And not just dust mites, but the big daddy of dust mites, bed bugs, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Those are the like you said, they're the big
nasty.
Those are the things, and they can be a big deal and very difficult to get rid of.
What is the best way to get rid of them without putting toxins in? I see people have some exterminator come over and actually spray pesticides on their mattress. To me, that's like insane.
I know.
I'd rather throw out the mattress. And
it is. And lots of times, good old fashioned hot water, wash everything. A lot of people don't recognize how important it is to wash all of your clothes in addition to the linen, or else you're kind of reseeding that, because you'll have patients who come back kind of full circle with the same sort of presentation. But you're right. I am not a fan. I'm always big as far as no toxins, no pesticides, that sort of thing. I think at least people are a little more aware of it than they used to be, as far as what chemicals can do to our body long term. But you're absolutely right. You want to be very, very careful when you're thinking about any chemicals that we're introducing into our households.
I like to think everybody's aware, but you know, I drive down my street. There's a guy, he just put a new front yard in without grass. He's walking around his front yard spraying glyphosate, Roundup, you know, and then of course he's tracking it right into his house, and he's not even wearing, you know, a ventilator or anything. So he's breathing that crap in.
Yeah, see, and that's the scary part when I hear stories like that, because I guess you're right, Ben, because I think because everything in the health community right now, everything are about toxins and chemicals, and you think everybody kind of gets it. But to your point, you're right. There's still some education that needs to take place.
No, you go to Home Depot and you see a bottle of Roundup, and they have pictures of animals and butterflies, and it's perfectly safe, and you know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then you and I know a little bit differently about what that can do to us and to our bodies.
Right. Are there any other sleep cheats that you want to tell us about to help everybody get a better night's sleep?
You know, I'd already mentioned one thing to kind of cut out as far as caffeine with being careful, but
Right.
the other one are cocktails or alcohol.
Okay.
Because some people will use that to help them sleep at bedtime, and,
Right.
and one of the things you'll find out, alcohol, yeah, it will help a little bit with initiation of sleep, but the studies once again show you're going to have a restless sleep typically. You're not going to sleep as peacefully as you can. So, you know, those are some things as far as we talked about cocktails, and we also talked about caffeine. Those are things you have to be a little careful with too close to bedtime. So if someone kind of holds my feet to the fire and says, well, I need my cup of coffee before bedtime, I just tell them, give me 2 hours before bed. So at least that sort of stuff can wash out a bit.
Do you like any of the supplements for sleep? Melatonin, 5-HTP, various forms of magnesium, L-theanine?
I do. I'm open to all of the above. I'll tell you this, I'm a big lover of melatonin. One thing that I'll hear a lot of is that you'll have people who super duper love it, or they're like, I'm kind of there, but not fully there. I never really reach anybody who just didn't get any benefit. Usually I tell them you start at a low dose, 1 milligram. If you need to, go up to 2 milligrams and see if there's a benefit. But I love the naturalness and the holisticness of starting with melatonin before these other things that require my prescription pad, which is, you know, try to put an X on that if we can, if we don't need to go there.
Do you prescribe sleep pharmaceuticals?
Not as much as I used to. You know, it's interesting because as I mentioned, you know, it's different in training. You know, patients come in, I mean, many moons ago when I started, when somebody comes in, you want to make them feel better. You know, you have something that can help that sleep, but then you get more educated over the years. And then you start to realize that there are alternative ways of healing that are a lot safer for our bodies and for our brains and even spiritually. And then so as that started, gosh, I barely even write anything as far as for sleep agents in this day and age. I really try to push more melatonin than anything, and then some of these sleep cheats. And then my other kind of sleep cheat that I kind of add is this exercise. Whatever that is, I don't care what age you are. And it doesn't matter whether it's in the morning or at the night, because that's the next question I typically get. Should I not be working out close to the evening? And whatever you can do to get those endorphins up, and then therefore you get back, you lay your head down on the pillow, you'd be surprised how that impacts your rest also.
And then of course you got the blood sugar factor too.
Yeah, exactly. And you always have to consider your blood sugar when you're thinking about any of these things. Insulin levels they spike, guys, and so they can make you feel a little differently than another person. So very important hormone.
And then you got the cortisol levels as well. And some people who are stressed out, that get that evening rise of cortisol.
That's right. Another important hormone to really keep in mind. And that gets back to something else that is not even this topic, but stress. I'm a big supporter of doing everything we can to reduce stress and eliminate things that don't belong there.
Great. Yeah. As far as the supplements go, we have found generally that melatonin, a little better for falling asleep. We usually start with 3 milligrams, and then 5-HTP, a little better for the patients who fall asleep but have trouble waking up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. So see, and I love hearing about these different kind of cocktails, because here we are, different parts of the U.S. trying to attack the same thing, but we're trying to do it holistically and in a healthy sort of way. So I love hearing how you kind of set yours up too.
Right. Out here in the burning coast of the country.
I know. And I used to practice out in California, and I know how it is when those fires come.
Wow, it's crazy. There's fires everywhere.
I know. And you feel that heat when you go back to your home and that sort of thing. I know I used to, when you feel it's almost like you're in an oven.
Oh yeah. I mean, we had a fire Tuesday. It was 30 miles away, and the fire alarm went off in my office. The smoke was that thick. It's crazy.
Wow. No, it's a really big deal. So speaking of stress, for instance, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, are having some undue stress now, and I'm quite sure they're having some sleep disturbance.
Absolutely. Hey, Dr. Redcross, this was a fun interview. For patients who'd like to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
So sure, my website is drredcross.com. That's drredcross.com. If you want to say hello on Facebook, it's Ken Redcross MD. Twitter is @Dr. Redcross. And if you're an Instagram person, it is just Dr. Redcross.
That's great. Hey, we have a closed Facebook page called the Functional Medicine Discussion Group of Santa Monica. You ought to jump on there. You can help participate in some of our discussions.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Nice talking to you, and I'll talk to you sometime in the future. Good luck, Dr. Redcross.
You too. Have a blessed day.